This is lesson 3 of my verb collocation series, and we are going to study collocations with the verb break. If you don't know what a verb collocation is, then go back to lesson 1 in this series for an explanation. Break is a commonly used verb in English. In its root meaning, it means to cause something to separate into pieces or to not function properly. But it has many wider meanings than this, and I am going to explain them here. But let's start with some examples of the root meaning. We can break parts of our body. I broke my finger when I fell off my bicycle. I had to go to the hospital for treatment. We can break any bone in our body, but we can't break a muscle or a ligament. This would be an incorrect collocation. For this, tear a muscle or tear a ligament would be the correct way to say this, but it depends on what the injury is exactly. Notice the use of the possessive pronoun here, my finger, because the finger belongs to me. In some languages, such as Spanish, you would use the definite article, la pierna or el dedo here. This is not correct in English. She broke her leg playing tennis. She could also break her racket playing tennis, but the racket might also be allowed if the racket wasn't hers. She broke the racket she borrowed. And also note the structure here, which is quite different to some languages. It is a regular structure with break in the active form, subject plus verb plus object. Think about it in your own language. Is it different? In Spanish, se rompió la pierna is a completely different structure. By the way, if someone says break a leg to you, it may sound like they are wishing you bad luck or that something bad happens to you. It sounds strange, I know, but in fact the complete opposite is true. They are wishing you good luck or to have a good time. There is an extra little expression for you to know. We often use break in the passive form or as an adjective, such as my computer is broken. We would use this form when it is not important to express how the computer broke or who broke it. My computer is broken and I have no idea what happened to it. So what about your car? How do we express it when your car is not working? Well, we need to add a very important preposition that you cannot forget, and that is down. To break down, which also has other meanings as a phrasal verb, which I will explain in the extra learning section at the end. So we can say, my car broke down on the motorway and I had to call a breakdown truck, or in North America, they call it a tow truck. It is not going to sound right if you do not add the down here. It is just a collocation with break that you need to use when talking about any type of motor vehicle. Breakdown can also be used in another way, in another very important context, and that is when we were talking about our emotional state. A nervous breakdown, ataque de nervios in Spanish, is when we suffer from sudden intense mental stress. I suffered or had a nervous breakdown last year. One more meaning of breakdown relates to relationships or communications. Their relationship broke down and they are getting divorced. There was a breakdown in communications and nobody knew what was happening. Notice here how I used breakdown as a noun. This structure is quite common in English. In a different context, you might often hear this term used in political or business negotiations when there is a failure to reach an agreement. Note the collocation, to reach an agreement. As I am recording this video, there is a terrible war going on in Gaza, and there are talks about a ceasefire, but they seem to always break down without an agreement. So let's move on to some other collocations where break does not have this root meaning I gave you earlier. There are lots of these, but we're just going to cover the most common ones. If watching the news in English, you might see this on your TV screen or sometimes on news websites. Breaking news. This is news that is being reported for the first time right now. We can also use this collocation with break in the active form, but in a different context, and that context would be when the news is sad or bad news. Helena broke the bad news to her mother last night. That bad news might be that Elena is very ill with cancer or something like that. The HR department, HR, Human Resources, broke the news to the employees that the company was going to have to lay off some employees because the company was not doing well. By the way, lay off is the correct term here in this context, but some of you may understand that term as to fire. Fire is not always correct, and I will explain it briefly in the extra learning section at the end. As always, if you are finding this lesson useful, then please don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons. You already know, I'm sure, how important it is to keep this channel busy. The more likes and subscribes I get, the more video lessons I will make. Thank you. Okay, so back to the lesson. And the next collocation we're going to look at is to break the law. You are breaking the law when you drive above the speed limit. It is the police's job to catch people who break the law. She broke the law, so now she needs to pay the price. We can use it with rules also. It's the same idea. Is it okay to break the rules sometimes? Well, some people say it is, and some people say you should always follow the rules. Yes, to follow the rules. There's another collocation for you. We can break a promise. Maybe you promised your nephew that you would be at his birthday party, but you had to work. Then you broke your promise. We can break a record. The Guinness Book of Records has thousands of entries of people who have broken records. We can also break someone's heart when we were talking about our emotions or love. She broke my heart when she left me for someone else. It breaks my heart to see children suffer during war. It is heartbreaking. That's how we use it as an adjective. When we stop doing something that we used to do often, we break a habit. This can be a good habit or a bad habit. I used to go walking every day, but I have broken the habit for some reason. I need to get back into the habit of walking every day. I used to smoke, but I broke the habit 5 years ago. This is a good habit to break, of course. We can also say to quit smoking, which is more common. If you have a €50 note and you want smaller notes, you can ask someone to break it for you. No, it does not mean that you want them to damage the note you have. It is just a way of saying that you would like smaller notes, such as €5 and €10 notes. In North American English, they don't call this a note, they call it do you know? A bill. Coming up is the extra learning section where I discuss other aspects of the language that are related to things discussed in this lesson and some more advanced uses of the language. So make sure to continue watching and please don't forget to hit those buttons. So let's have a look at other language matters related to the language I used in the lesson. I gave you the term layoff in the lesson in the context of the HR department laying off employees. Many non-native speakers use the term to fire here. They seem to love this term for some reason, but it is not the correct form in many contexts. People are fired from their jobs because of their poor performance or some disciplinary matter. It is usually the employee's fault. It is a very strong and aggressive term. If you lose your job because the company is making business decisions, then we say more passive terms such as lay off, let go, or made redundant. To be made redundant means that you receive financial compensation for losing your job. It has that specific meaning, and the money you receive is called a redundancy or a redundancy payment. The company laid off 25 employees, or 25 employees were made redundant or were let go. You can say to be let go in any context, and it is much more non-descriptive to use this term even if you are actually fired. You are not going to go into a job interview and tell the interviews that you were fired from your last job, even if it is true. Tell them you were let go instead. To break down can be used as a phrasal verb, and it has many uses. If you have a problem that you need to solve, then it is often a good idea to break it down into smaller parts so that you can understand what the problem is better. You could also use breakdown in this way if you are working on a project and you need to categorize all the components of that project so that it is easier to manage. Here's another great term for you, and that is to break even. We normally use this term when we are talking about money and whether we make a profit or a loss. If you don't make a profit or a loss, then we can say we break even. We didn't make any money, but we didn't lose any money either. Very simple. So that's it for this lesson. If you have any comments, then put them in the comments section and I will respond. See you in the next lesson very soon, I hope.